listening to PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. This is your host, Tim Link, and I'm so excited that you're here with me today. Joining us on the program today, a special guest is award-winning author and writer Tracy Ahrens. Tracy will be here. Hey, Tracy.
Tim. How are you?
Good, very good. Now, we'll get into talking to your book here in a minute. You got a wonderful book called Raising My Furry Children. So we're going to get back with Tracy in just a moment, right after we hear these commercial breaks. You're listening to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio.
Sit. Stay. We'll be right back after a short pause. Well, 4 to be exact.
Petco, where the pets go. Petco, where the pets go.
Pet Life Radio has tail-wagging, fur-flying, fabulous deals for our listeners from Petco. Get $6 off your order of $60 or more and up to 40% off the entire Petco site. That's right. But that's not all. Because you're a Pet Life Radio listener, you'll also get free shipping on your order of $49 or more. $6 off, up to 40% off, and free shipping from Pet Life Radio and Petco. To get these awesome deals, go to PetcoDeals.com. That's PetcoDeals.com.
Petco, where the pets go.
I'm not much of a reader, but I do wish I were more well-read.
There are so many great books coming out. I wish I could find a way to keep up.
Audible.com makes it easy to stay well informed and catch up on your reading simply by listening. Audiobooks from Audible turn downtime into uptime. You'll be more productive and become well read.
Now I'm able to catch up on all the great books I've been wanting to read.
With Audible, I feel smarter.
Pet Life Radio listeners, try Audible.com now and get your first 30 days of Audible Listener Gold membership plan free. And get a free audiobook. Choose from over 100,000 titles. To get this great deal, go to audibledeals.com. That's audibledeals.com.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. This is your host, Tim Link. And joining me now is Tracy Ahrens, who recently released her book, Raising My Furry Children. Tracy, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tim. How are you?
Good, very good. Thanks for joining us today. Tell our listeners a little bit about Raising My Furry Children. Tell us about the storyline and the premise of the book.
Well, for years as soon as I adopted my Brittany Spaniel, he was 3 months old, and I started to write down tidbits of things that he would do. I'd write little notes to myself, such as half a pack of gum, or that he licked the cake that I had left out on the sink, and things like that. I would keep notes to myself. And being a writer, I started to put them together in little essays, maybe Irma Bombeck-length type of essays. And I would share these stories with friends, fellow pet owners, and we were always laughing about them, and they would share their stories with me. So I continued to write more of them based on my Brittany at the time and my cats that I had. I had 2 cats at first, and then I had 3, and then towards the end of my Brittany's life, I had 4 right before he passed away. But I would write stories about all of them, and I started to ask different publications if they would be interested in maybe running them. And I found homes for a few of the stories, and they would run regularly. And I just kept collecting the stories in a book. And sometime later, obviously my Brittany Spaniel, he passed away in 2007. I decided that I would put them all together into a book form, and I would help American Brittany Rescue by donating a portion of the proceeds to Brittany Rescue because of him, because of my Brittany Speckles, because he was so funny, and he'd always have me laughing, and at the same time he was just a sweetheart. I had fostered a couple of Brittany Spaniels after he passed away through American Brittany Rescue, and that's how I became acquainted with them, and I wanted to help them out because of all the Brittany's, obviously, that are homeless like many other animals out there. And that's how it came together. I wove it together with a beginning based on something that had happened at a local animal shelter here. It's our animal control facility, and they had 2 cats that were left outside in a box, cardboard box, out front of the shelter one morning. And there was a note on it from the owner as to why the cats were left, and it was it touched on personal things about these cats that no one else would have ever known if the owner hadn't shared it, such as that the one cat liked to be vacuumed and that the other cat liked to eat mozzarella cheese from Aldi. I mean, these little particular things that showed the personality of these cats that had to be abandoned because the owner had said that they were dying and they were not able to take care of their cats anymore and they didn't know what to do. It sums up the fact that what I had been thinking for so long is that they are like our furry children, and they are my children. And today I have another dog that's a mixed breed. I have 3 cats. 2 of the cats in the book that I talk about I still have, and I have one that I've adopted now. When you go to shelters, a lot of times they'll ask you about an animal. If you have to give an animal up, they will ask you about that animal's personality and what they like and what they do not like. And one of the things I remember our shelter would ask is, what else can you tell us about your pet? And I thought to myself, I'd never be able to sum it up on a couple of lines on a piece of paper. There's just no way I could, because the more we stick with them and play with them and interact with them and study them, they all have these little biographies, and they're just like little, to me, it's like a person's life. It's a little encapsulated life of what they love, what their behavior. I think you probably understand. I read about what you do and trying to unite pets with their owners, and I think you probably can relate to that fact, and most of us can, that they all have their own little personality.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell all the time, whether I'm on doing consultations, radio, TV, where it may be, that topic comes up. And they, there's a specific breed of an animal. We're talking dogs, cats, whatever animal it is. And the breed will have certain characteristics, but it goes much deeper than that. And you're absolutely right. They all have their own unique personalities, and we need to figure out how to work best with them and make sure they understand what we need. And they do become a huge part of our family.
And I think, too, that and my thought process in all of this is that the more that they know about animals that have to go to a shelter, if someone has to give them up, and in our economy and so forth, a lot of people have unfortunately had to surrender their animals to different no-kill shelters, and they have to give some information about that animal. The more that a shelter knows, the quicker a lot of times they can place it. Otherwise, the animals, if you can get them into foster care, you can learn about their behavior and what they like and they do not like, and if they like other cats and so forth. And it helps you to place them quicker. But if you don't know a lot about them, it's an amazing study. And my dog currently, I adopted him, and I did learn a little bit about him before I adopted him. But he has a great deal of separation anxiety and anxiety over different issues. And I've had to work with him and learn him. He's had to teach me about himself, and I've had to show him that I'm not leaving him like so many people had abandoned him before I came to know him. And he has his own little story, and I think there's a lot about him I don't know, because I don't have anything based on what he's been through.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of real important points there. Is the fact that, first of all, if you have an animal that you can no longer take care of due to whatever situation you have, whether it's financial or you're moving or whatever it may be, there are options. There are rescue organizations that will help you with the bills in some cases. They'll allow you to become a foster of your own animal until they can find the right and perfect home for them. So.
Great.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of options out there. We just need to continue to educate the people. And I think the second thing, what you had mentioned, is absolutely true, because I get asked more than anything. I do a lot of work with rescue organizations and a former president of a no-kill shelter here in Georgia. And that's one thing I get asked the most. I've got a dog that I rescued. I don't know their history. Can you tell me about their history? Or can you give me some inside scoop? And that's very important, because you need to know, as you said, it helps place them a little bit quicker. Plus, it helps us humans be more at ease because we have a little bit of that history, which we desperately need to know.
Yes, absolutely. And I would think if we could study them more, and by that I mean, I feel like sometimes Jane Goodall watching the apes, but I just love interacting with them and watching them and trying to get into their mind and see. I mean, you can just watch their joy over certain simple things in life, and it brings you joy. You learn their behavior and their every move if you're able to interact with them. I suppose it's just like, I don't have human children, but I'm sure it's just like with a child. You learn their behavior.
You do.
I would think.
Yeah, it's always fascinating, and I think there's great life lessons we learn from them, and just the having simple pleasure of everyday things. And I applaud you for how you went about putting everything together, because recently I lost my furry boy Buzz. He was the last of the Buzz and Woody pair, and my wife and I, we spent probably 2 weeks constantly thinking of all the great things that they used to do, and we finally wrote most of them down and put them into a document where we can write stories, or at least have a remembrance of them. But there's still ongoing things that we'd sort of forgot over the past 7, 8, 9 years. So I think it's important and a great study in the fact that you wrote them as you saw them, so you had a nice collection of stories, but you also had a nice memory portfolio in front of you.
And you know what, Tim, when you go back, if I go back and I look at the book, and when I was putting it together, there were things that I forgot, but when I read them again, it all just came back, which was a lot of fun too. And I still have that. I'll go back and I'll read it now and then, and those stories are there. And I know not everybody is a writer, and a lot of people have told me, I don't think I could write that, but you could write down simple notes, and just like you're keeping a scrapbook. Mm-hmm. You could write down simple things and even pictures that they would help you to remember and live and relive what you went through. And like I said, if you unfortunately would have to find the pet another home, that would be a wonderful thing to be able to supplement the shelter or the rescue group to help find it another home.
Absolutely. The character that kicked all this off is Speckles. You mentioned your American Brittany
My
dog.
Brittany, yeah.
Yeah. After writing all the notes, putting all that together in a book form, chapter form, and you said you went back and read the stories and read the highlights. What was the thing that surprised you most? The thing that sort of like, I almost forgot that, or I couldn't believe this after I read all about what I'd actually written over the years.
I think some of them more were about my cats, too. I have a cat named Joan of Arc, and she's 12. She just turned 12. And I found her when she was 1 pound, and she was about 1 month old, and she was in the street. And she had, her sibling was beside her, and it had been struck by a car, and she wouldn't leave beside of her sibling. Now, she was only a pound. She's a little tiny little fuzzy thing. And this was at night, and I didn't even know. I thought it was just trash laying in the road. So I just straddled my car tires over it, and I didn't want to run over whatever it was. And I saw these eyes looking up at me, and that was Joan. I went right over the top of her. And then I stopped, and I went back. I was like, oh, my God, those are eyeballs. I got to go back and I can see what that is. And I picked her up, and I picked up the other little one that was deceased, and I remember she hissed at me. And she, with all of her might, she says, 1 pound, but she hissed at me. But as she was growing up, I forgot the story where she'd go out in my fenced-in backyard, and she'd always go to one corner. Now, she was this little girl, she's my warrior princess. That's why I call her Joan of Arc, because she's she's a survivor. To be able to, and she's a feisty little girl. And she's just beautiful. And she uses that beautifulness there to flirt with everybody, I think, too. But she'd always go to one corner of my yard. She'd climb up on that chain link fence and go right over and immediately start exploring. And you would think of that with a boy, but not a girl cat. But she'd just go right up over the fence. She went up the pine tree that I had right beside my house, and this thing probably went up over 2 stories, and she was just a little bitty fart. And she probably maybe like 4 months old or something, and she went right up the tree, and she kept going higher and higher, and I didn't know how I was going to get her down. I remember I had to call my brother and have him come over and help me go up there with a great big extension ladder to try and get her back down, but I tried spraying her with a garden hose, thinking maybe that would make her come down. And by the time I got her down, she had more little pine sap, little balls of pine sap in her fur, and she has long hair, so that whole day just always makes me laugh, and I had forgotten all about that with her, but she's always been feisty. Now, the other one I think was Speckles is one of the funny things he did was he would always take off running from me. At the time I was married, and he would listen to my ex-husband. If he would call his name, he would stop. But for me, I was his buddy, and he'd just run, because Brittany said loved to run. Mm-hmm. And I remember he got away from me one day, and he was running towards my neighbor's in-ground pool. And I could just envision what was going to happen. And sure enough, he went right through the air, jumped right in their in-ground pool, and he's swimming around in the pool, and I had to fish him out of there. The whole thing was just comical as could be. I can't even, you think about these things, and you think, he was just a carefree soul. He loved everybody, and he wanted to visit everybody, and everybody came to visit him. That's just the way he lived his life. He was just a very friendly, sweet animal with other animals and kids and people. He's just a wonderful guy. So yeah, there were many stories, but those are a couple I could think of that I had forgotten about, but I had written them down. And Tim, over the years, like I said, I had them in different publications, but not all of them. And I continue to write these little stories about the animals that I have, and they do run in a publication that's based in Chicago, and they have magazines across the country, Tales Pet Media, and it's Tales Inc., TalesInc.com.
Right.
And they have my stories on there once a month, and I just enjoy writing them, so I keep sharing them. And like I said, my dog he's got a fascinating history. So the things he does are just, he blows me away.
They're all great stories, and obviously he's a testament to life. So I'm going to come back after this commercial break and talk to you a little bit more about your about the book, but also talk to you a little bit more about your writing and writing styles. So everybody hang tight. We'll continue our conversation with Tracy Ahrens right after these messages from our sponsors. You're listening to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio.
Sit. Stay. We'll be right back after a short pause. Well, 4 to be exact.
Introducing the new Bret Michaels Pets Rock collection exclusively at PetSmart. I created it for the pets that rock your world.
Shop the Bret Michaels Pets Rock collection and celebrate PetSmart's 25th anniversary with up to 25% off thousands of items on the PetSmart site. Plus free shipping on orders of $49 or more. Go to PetSmartDeal.com. That's PetSmartDeal.com. PetSmartDeal.com.
I don't make any decisions about who to hire without going to Angie's List first.
You'll find reviews on home repair to healthcare, written by people just like you.
With Angie's List, I know who to call, and I know the results will be fantastic.
Angie's List, who you can trust.
Go to angieslist.com/rights and get 25% off any subscription. That's angieslist.com/rights. WRITES.
Dyson.
The new Dyson Animal Vacs are powerful bagless upright vacuums for homes with pets. Air muscle and radio root cyclone technology generates the strongest suction power to powerfully remove dust, dirt, and pet hair from the home or car. To order your Dyson Animal Vac, go to DysonDeals.com. DysonDeals.com to order your Dyson Animal Vac today.
Dyson. Music to your ears.
When you're looking to add a pet into your life, consider adopting a homeless animal from your local shelter or rescue group. Whether you want a kitten, puppy, or a more mature pet, a purebred or a one-of-a-kind mixed breed, even a rabbit or hamster, your shelter has the best selection of animals anywhere, all screened for good health and behavior. PetLifeRadio.com presents Take Me Home with your host, Susan Daffron. Join us each week as we showcase wonderful pets, tell stories, and even throw some pet education into the mix. So get ready to find out why the pet adoption option can be a great way to add a furry companion into your life. Take Me Home every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.
Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
On Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. It's your host, Tim Link, and I'm here with author Tracy Ahrens talking about her book, Raising My Furry Children. Now, Tracy, with the book, if you had to, after the readers read the book, what would be the one walk-away piece you would want them to get out of from reading the book?
I would think probably the closing. In closing the book, I mentioned how I lost 3 of the animals that I talk about in the very look back, and like I have, reflect on those funny and sometimes serious moments that I shared with them all the way up until that last minute when I had to say goodbye to them. And to me, it was important to show that after that life encapsulated in those little stories, how we spent our last moments together. And I would hope that it helps firm up a bond between the people and the pets that they have. If it's not already there, which I'm sure it is if they're a pet lover, but maybe it'll help people become closer to their pets and start to watch them more closely and just soak up the fun times and the serious times that you share together. It was hard for me to relive all those things in the closings that I'm sure I shared the book with you, and I'm sure you read, because a couple of the situations were pretty traumatic when I lost my pets, and you know, their lives are short.
Yes.
We don't get blessed with a lengthy time with them, so I think in that aspect they're a gift to us too, because we need to soak all of it up as fast as we can and enjoy every moment that we have, because you never know. You just never know when it's going to be over. The same thing goes with people in your life. And I would hope the people, they read to the end of it, and hopefully they'll feel that connection too with their pet, that closeness.
Yeah, and I think you did a great job with the book. Is, you know, overall, and the stories are great. They're funny. They're interesting. I think they're very relatable. And then with the closing, obviously, I think anyone that's lost a pet has gone through that, and it's good to actually part of that mending process, part of that healing process, to hear those stories and to see how other people heal over time.
Yeah.
How long have you been writing about animals in general?
I probably started shortly after I started out of college writing for a newspaper. I had found the publication in Chicago called the Pet Times. They had a newspaper in Chicago. It was, of course, about pets and shelters and so forth there. And I had found out that they had started, and that's where I started sharing my columns at the time. So I always had that outlet, and for the publication I wrote for a daily newspaper in my hometown of Kankakee, Illinois, which is just south of Chicago, about an hour. We started to have a weekly pet page per se, and a special section once a year for Be Kind to Animals Week. And I just always shared and liked putting that together because of my love for the animals. And then when I adopted my dog Speckles, I of course started writing about him and my pets at that time, just privately. And so I would think it would stem back to there, that when I started, and I've been writing since professionally since about '92, I think now. It's been a good 20 years that I've been writing for newspapers and magazines and the like.
That's great. And you mentioned earlier you have a regular articles and writing on the Tells Media pet media group at tellsinc.com.
Yeah. I continue to share the stories about my current pets there and pictures of them. And it's a lot of fun. And the feedback that I get from people is what I love, because they'll tell me stories about what their pets have done, or they'll just write back in a simple thing and say, "That's a cool dog." You know, and to me, that's like, oh yeah, he's. I just hope that other people are able to connect and to feel maybe somewhat of what I feel, and hopefully be closer to animals in general. I don't know. I just love them, because I've just always been around animals since I was a child, and I actually was going to be a veterinarian. That was my thought when I was younger, and I changed majors right after I started college, and I became an English major, and I still have been able to help animals and people in that regard with my writing, and I do volunteer work with animal organizations here in town, humane organizations. They're usually mostly fundraising, or if they need me to write something, I will write something for newsletters or the like. But I try to help in that regard as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, continue to help those animals in different fashions. Well, let me ask you then, as far as writing for an online magazine or a newspaper, what are the differences or nuances in doing that compared to trying to put together stories for a book?
You know, the ones that I write online, I've been blessed with the fact that I can write them individually, like a column, as like I said, an Irma Bombeck length type of a piece. But when you put them all in the book, you need to weave it together in some way so that it's going to be cohesive. And that was the challenge with the book, is how would I put all these together so that they would be cohesive. I had to emphasize in the beginning what it all inspired this, but we decided between my publisher at Weaving Dreams Publishing and myself to put them into groups. So when you read the book, you're going to read about Speckles, my dog. I will put together, I have an introduction about how we met, and a portrait, because I'm also an artist and I've drawn a lot of pet portraits. So I have his portrait that I drew when he was 3 months old, and how we met, and then his stories. Then I put my cat's stories together with each of their individual portraits and how we met, and then their stories, and then I put together ones that were about all of them together at the end, and then of course the closing. So I needed to put it all together, Tim. I think you've written quite a few publications, haven't you?
Yeah,
I'm reading about you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've published before, and we're working on the next book. And I write frequently for online and print magazines. And yeah, I always like to hear different writers' viewpoints of that, because there are some similarities, but it's not as similar as what you think. And
yeah,
but trying to put
it together. You have to have that cohesive flow in some way that, and I wanted it to be able, Tim, so that people could go back if they remembered a story and they wanted to share it with somebody else just for fun, or say, oh, you got to read this near, because it's just like Spot or whoever. They could just open up and say, this is about the dog, this was about the cats, and I'm hoping that people do it. I hope that people read it and they laugh and they're able to share it with someone else, to say, oh God, that reminds me of my cat, or that explains why my cat doesn't and I'm not alone, type of a thought. Mm-hmm. Because I still share these stories with people I work with and just people I meet when I go to the humane functions that I attend, and we just share stories and they just start flowing. And you probably know what I mean. People start laughing and they're shaking like they're shaking a dog toy and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Which just always cracks me up, because people say, what is wrong with you people? Well, I'm just talking about my dog.
It's a great commonality. It's a great putting everybody on the same level, because no matter who you meet, I've had opportunities to interview and talk to celebrities, TV, movies, books, and you name it. And your personalities and traits and things, your experiences may be slightly different. But boy, if you mention you've got a dog or a cat or a bird or a fish, they've had one, all of a sudden it puts you on the same playing field. Yeah, and you're able to open up and just start talking about these things and I'm sure it's the same with people that have human children. They can just start talking about what their kids do, and this is what I know too. I mean, I just love being with them and watching them and drawing them. I feel a connection when I draw a portrait too, so that's why I decided I'd put them all in this book, so that it was a tribute to the animals that I had met, or animals that good friends of mine have had, that they would be able to have those in there and show people how many animals that I've known over the years. That's just a handful that's in there, but I continue to draw more, and I hope to put together another book someday, pretty much based on these guys that I have now, and my dog Trucker, who I mentioned before. He has quite a history of being abandoned, and he's been through a lot. And I'll just tell you that my current dog, when he was a puppy, was thrown out of a semi-truck, and his wife's name is Trucker, because the first people that had him, after they rescued him, named him Trucker. But that's how his life started. So he's been through some crazy things in his life, and he met me, and like I've written in a recent column, he laid on my lap in a pet store and he sighed. He just let out a big sigh and just melted in my lap. And it was the most relaxed and coachable he seemed to have been in months since he had been at the shelter, and no one wanted him based on his anxiety, and I couldn't let him go. It was like he told me, I'm home. Absolutely.
I'm yours.
Sigh of relief, you're finally home.
You know what, I'm sure people that listen to this will understand that. There's just some that you meet and they just, you know it's meant to be. They're supposed to be with you. And I had waited 2 years before I brought another dog full-time into my house after Speckles passed away, and that's how Trucker came into my life. And he's a special. I call him Trucker Josiah, Tim, because Josiah is a name that came to me in a dream, and I did not know why, but I looked it up, and it's a biblical name, as many of you probably know, and it means saved by God. And so his name is Trucker Josiah, because he truly has been saved many, many times, believe me, from the stories that I've heard and know about him. He's been saved many, many times. So. I
love that. That's great. That's great. Wonderful. Congratulations once again. The book's called Raising My Furry Children. Tracy did a great job with it. Where can people find out more about you and the book?
They can go to my website, and they can go to Raising My Furry Children, and I have it at .weebly.com. That's WEEBLY.com. That's raisingmyfurrychildren.weebly.com. And they can connect to my website, too, through there, and they can purchase. And you can find it at Barnes & Noble. You can order it. You can order it at Amazon.com. And a portion of the proceeds, as I say, go to American Brittany Rescue and the American Humane Association. And so I'm pretty much not making anything off this book, Tim. It's all going to charity.
I know that feeling.
But that's the way I feel, and that's what I wanted to do. So I hope it'll help.
Absolutely, it'll definitely help. So everybody go out and pick up a copy of the book. It's a great book, great stories, great pictures in here. You're a fabulous artist. And obviously it goes back to good charities as well. So once again, it's Raising My Furry Children by Tracy Ahrens. Tracy, thanks for coming on to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
Thanks so much. Well, we're coming to the end of the show today. I'd like to thank everyone for listening to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. I'd also like to thank our sponsors and producers for making the show possible. To find out more about me, Tim Link, and the other guests I've interviewed on the Animal Rights Show, and the stories in my blog, you can go to Pet Life Radio. That's PetLifeRadio.com, and you can download all the interviews and episodes, read the blogs, and find out more about what's going on. That's PetLifeRadio.com. Click on the Animal Rights tab. And while you're there, make sure you check out all the other wonderful shows and hosts on Pet Life Radio. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for this show, please email me. You can email me at tim@petliferadio.com. That's tim@petliferadio.com. And I'll be glad to answer your questions, entertain your comments, and bring on the people you want to hear from the most. So until next time, write a great story about the animals in your life, share it in a blog, article, or in a book. And who knows, you may be the next guest on Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. Have a great day.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.